Welcome back to my workshop. Now today I've got to make a very special birthday present. I've got this very expensive bottle of champagne and what I need to do is make a display box for it. Now what I want to do is draw you a quick picture to show you what I want to do, sort of. Let's go over to the whiteboard. Okay, so it's nothing complicated with this, but it's going to be a display box. So basically it's going to be a long box like this. Something like this anyway. Okay, but what I want to have is a sliding top along here. Okay, so something that can be slid out this way. Okay, so there's got to be a slidey top. On the top I'm going to have some engraving and inside I'm going to have some sort of support for the neck, okay, of the bottle. And then in the bottom I'm going to have a little circle that will fit into this recess, okay, to stop it tipping. That's the rough plan. There'll be some CNC stuff going on if I can. Let me show you what I've got to work with. Okay, so the material I've got to work with is this stuff, which is, I think it might be sapele. It's actually from a window frame, but it's all different sizes. There's all sorts of holes in it, holes in the end, but none of this is any good because I need to put it into a board, yeah, rather than lumps of wood like this, which I can't make a box out of. I need to turn it into a board. So I've got a couple of options on what I can do. Okay, so to turn these into boards, what I could do, my first option is I could cut it down the middle here on the table saw or the band saw, and then stick them together as a board. Or alternatively, I could cut loads of strips along here, okay, and then stick them together. Now, all of these, as you can see, are slightly different colours. So if I do it this way, I'm going to end up with one or two boards that are going to look a bit different. But if I do it in loads of little strips, I can mix and match, so it almost becomes like a feature. So I think what I'll do is I'll cut thin strips, about 15mm, and then stick them all together as boards. So let's get some of this on the table saw. Right, so the eagle-eyed amongst you may have noticed I forgot to put on my dust mask. Let's have a look and see what the air quality is doing. Right, so we can see, yeah, we've got some increase here, up to 43 on the PM 2.5, and PM 10 is 58. So that means there's quite a few large particles. Small particles, not so bad. All right, but I still need to put this on because look at this dust. Okay. Right, don't forget. Right, so that's all the initial table saw stuff done. I've now got them cut into battens like this. I've got to address this now. I've got things like screw holes and also bits like this where it's been drilled into. Okay, so I've got to address that. So chop this off and then I can stick them together in smaller boards. Okay, and the size of boards I need is, now here's the bottle of champagne. It's probably about 5 boards wide. So if I stick them together in 5s, then we can go from there. Right, so that's all these panels now glued up. I don't know which ones are the side or the back or the front yet. I'm going to leave these overnight and then start cutting them in the morning. Right, so while I wait for all that lot to dry, what I want to do is make a little plug that sits in the bottom of here. Okay, so I've got myself another piece of the same wood, which I think is sapele, and I'm going to turn this down on the lathe so this actually sits in here. Now that should stop it rattling about when it's being moved. So I want to get this in the lathe. First of all, I've got to turn it down on centres and then get a tenon stuck in the chuck. Right, so that's my little plug turned. So this sits like that, okay? And in that way, this won't wobble about. I've got a little tenon on the end here. What I should do is drill a 20mm hole in the base, and then that sits in there. All right, but that's in the future. Let's carry on. Right, so all my panels have now been sticking overnight. They do need to go through the planer, but what I want to do first is square off the ends, then measure my bottle to see how big I've got to make the sides and the back and the front. Okay, so first thing to first, square off the edges, and for that I'm going to use my table saw sled. Like that. Okay, to measure the height that we need, we're going to have a base, and obviously we'll just measure the back. I want to give myself a little bit of space. It's not critical at the moment, so we're going to go approximately here, as long as I allow enough thickness for the base and the top. So that is, let's have a look, 37. So let's go 37 centimeters. So now I'm going to cut the back and the three sides, or the two sides in the front, down to 37 centimeters. Right, so I now have my four sides all cut to length, and I've got my offcuts which will be used for the top and the bottom. So these can go out of the way for the moment. Now these ones, I've had to do some repairs. There were some little holes. So what I'm going to do is quickly sand these down very quickly and then put them through the planer thicknesser. Right, so I now have my two sides and my top and my bottom. Now what I have to do is on each corner, I need to cut a 45-degree angle so I can get these joined together. Now the way I'm going to do that is by using my mitre on my table saw, and I'm going to set my angle using one of these, which is an angle gauge. Okay, I'll quickly show you how I use that now. Okay, so I want to set my table saw blade to 45 degrees. Now using one of these, now you literally just turn this on. Okay, oh look, my table's at 0, but you zero it so you've got the flat level of the table. Okay, that's 0. Then you attach it to your blade like this, not on the teeth, just on the blade, and then you adjust it to 45 degrees. Right, so I now have my 45 degrees cut on all of the top and the sides and the bottom, and the idea is now that this will all fold up like this, if I can get it to go right. Okay, and that gives us our basic box shape. But we can't stick this together yet because we need to sort out the front and the back. Now to do that, what I need to do is cut a groove along here for the back and along here for the front. Okay, let's set the table saw up again. Okay, so before I cut the recess in here, what I need to do is I've cut my front and my back, and what I need to do is put a slight cut, a rebate along all of the edges so this can insert. So what I've done is I've set up my table saw, so the height of the blade is exactly half of the thickness of the material, and the depth from the outside of the blade to the fence is the 6mm I need for this to insert into the box. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the recesses on these. I put a sticky note on here, do not cut, because this is the bit that slides in and out. Okay, and I don't need a recess on here. Okay, you'll see what I mean later on. Right, let's start cutting my recesses. Okay, so I've cut my initial slot along here, obviously without fannying about with the table saw. It's easier if I use a plane. Now this is an edge plane, so I can cut right up to the edge. And I'm going to quickly just take off this little lip. Okay. Right, after literally hours of fettling and mucking about and making some changes, I've got to the point now where my sides are done, my top and my bottom are done, my back is done, and my front is done. Now in theory, I've practiced this. This should go like this, this should go like this, it's beautiful, that like that, that like that. Okay, so basic box shape. Okay, the front should go like that. Okay, problem is, I just dropped it. Let me show you. Okay, so I dropped it on this edge. Now look, I've damaged this quite severely. Let's see if I can focus on that a bit better. So I can't really recover this. What I'm going to have to do is chop it off here and here and put another strip along the front there. But I shall do that later on. I've got to do a design on the front, and that means some CNC work. So let's start doing that. Okay, so I've done a quick design here. This is the 60th birthday design. Now that's the front panel, which is here. Okay, so I've now converted that to G code, and so I should be able to run that in Mach 3. Okay, so I'm going to start this running and let's get carving. Right, just going hands-free here. Something's gone horribly wrong with this. Let me show you what's happened. Okay, so the engraving got down to this part here, and it jumped, and it's ended up doing this, which is completely in the wrong place. And I've just re-zeroed it. This is where it thinks 0 is, and that's where 0 should be. Right, what a disaster. I think what happened is this runner actually hit something that was sitting here. So now this is all wrong. Now what I'll do is I'll recarve it and see what this is like, because I don't really want to make a new front. Right, start that bit again. Right, so over the last few evenings, what I've been trying to do is the front, okay, and it went horribly wrong. Okay, so I've got my panel, it's got my slides on it here, and I engraved the front, but when it got down to this part here, it all went horribly wrong. So what I had to do is then route out to get rid of all of the wrong engraving, and I tried engraving it again, but it's not very good. So then I went about making an insert out of a contrasting piece of wood, which fits nice and snugly in here. But I didn't like this. It started to look a bit not very nice. So basically what I've had to do is do the whole thing again, and I've now got this, okay, which is what I wanted in the first place, but obviously last time it went wrong here. So this now should slide in here. Okay, I'm happy with that. Right, so what I want to do now is, before I stick this box together, I want to concentrate on the inside. And the first thing I need to do is insert this into the bottom here. So I want that in the middle. Obviously what I've got to do is cut this down a little bit, drill a hole in there and put this in here. Okay, and that's where the bottle sits. Then I've got to sort out some neck support. Right, so let's get on with that. So I now have my base with the recess cut into it with a little Forstner bit. I've chopped off the end of this, okay, and then that will sit in there nicely. So that'll obviously be stuck in there with a bit of wood glue. Okay, right, now to the neck support. What I've done now is I've cut another piece of wood here. Now ideally I should have had the grain going this way, but I've ended up with the grain going that way. It doesn't matter, it's not under any load. Now this is the right width for this, so that now fits in there like that. So when the bottle sits in it, this will rest inside there. Okay, so what I need to do now is scallop out here to the same width as the neck of the bottle. Okay, let's cut that. So now we have our cutout for the neck support. Now this literally just sits in here. This will be glued in with wood glue. Then the bottle sits on the knobbly bit and it sits like that. Okay, so that's some neck support. Right, I think it's about time we stuck this bloody box together. Right, so I've got some glue on this now. I'm going to leave this to stick probably overnight, maybe a couple of hours, I don't know yet. Let's make it up as we go along. While this is sticking, I think I better tidy up the workshop. Look, what a mess. Okay, let's tidy up the workshop. Okay, so now all the corners are now dry, the glue is dry. What I want to do is I want to put an insert on here, 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 and all the other corners, just to add to the strength. Okay, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use my biscuit joiner. Okay, now I've recently done a video showing you the basics on how to use a biscuit joiner. I know that the kerf on the blade on here is about 4mm, so I think a 4mm insert in these should be quite good, and if I do it in a different wood, it'll be a nice contrast. Okay, so what I've had to do is, first of all, mark off a 45-degree angle from the corner. Okay, let's just hold this here, and then the same from this corner, same from the other corners. And what that does, it gives me this. Okay, now I'll show you why I need that now. Right, so hopefully you can see this clearly enough. What I've done is I've put a bit of tape on there and used a thicker marker so you can actually see it on the video. What I want to do is I've set up my biscuit joiner to cut in about 7mm. Okay, that means that it won't cut too deep into the corners, but deep enough for my joins. Okay, I've set the fence height here so I get 2 equally spaced joints here. So what the cross is so I can put this red line on the corner, but then this red line on this part here, and that ensures that when I cut, I'm at a 45-degree angle. Okay, that's the plan. What could possibly go wrong? Okay, so I've readjusted my biscuit joiner, so the plunge, instead of, even though I've got this set to 7, I've adjusted it so this now goes in about 10mm. This should give me a bit better of a join. Okay, so let's try and cut it. Okay, I think that'll be okay. Okay, so that went quite well. What I've got now is obviously on each of the corners, I've got 2 inserts. To do the front, what I did is I actually used the original one that went wrong, the original front, and I put it in backwards. And that gave me a nice flat surface to actually rest the jointer on. Okay, so that worked relatively well. All I've got to do now is cut some inserts to go in there. So I now have my joints here, which I cut with the biscuit joiner. And what I've done is I've cut 8 of these small pieces of oak. So it's a slightly contrasting colour, and I've cut these on the table saw, and these will be stuck in each of these holes to give it a little bit of extra strength. Right, let's stick these in with a little bit of wood glue. Right, while I'm waiting for those inserts to dry, I've just been over on the CNC machine here, and I've done a secret message on the inside of the box lid. I don't know if you could see this. It's in Morse code. Now, he's one of the only people that I know can read Morse code, so I've done him a secret message inside. Should be good. Okay, so what I've got to do now is where I dropped it on this corner, way back in the early part of the video, I've had to trim down the lid. So I've cut about 10mm off of it, so that now sits lower than it did before, and I've got to cut these corners off. Now I've already run it through the table saw and chopped off most of it, and the rest of it I'll probably do with one of these little pull saws. Okay, and then the idea is once that's flush, I can then trim down this a little bit more, and I can use that, stick that on and use that as a handle. Okay, so now I've got to be very careful when I've got to cut this off. Don't break it, Frank. So my joints have now dried, all the wood glue is dry, so what I need to do is cut these off. Don't come too close, otherwise I might damage the actual box. And all I'm going to use is this very small Japanese pull saw and basically cut them off. I don't normally use this. I've had it for about, it must be almost 20 years, and I've never really used it. This is a small mouse or a detail sander. Shows how often I've used it. The dust extractor is still in the bag. Now this is so many years old. I'm going to try and use it, and I think the reason I don't use it is because I've never got any of the pads. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to use one of these 125mm orbital sander disc, and then basically stick it to it like that, and then cut around the edge. I don't know why I haven't done this before. Now the reason obviously I want to use this now is because I need to get inside the box, and luckily for me this fits inside the box. Right, let's try and use this. Right, this did the job, but I've just remembered why I don't use it. This thing vibrates so much, I remember now, and it's really loud. But it did the job. Right, let's move on to the next bit. Right, the next steps. This looks like it was going to be easy, but it's proving more difficult than I expected. I just want to stick this in with a little bit of wood glue. That shouldn't be too much of a problem. But my neck here, my neck support, I've had to spend ages trying to get it so it sits square. Okay, so basically I've been using a little engineer's square here to make sure that it sits square in the box. Okay, now all I'm going to do is stick a little bit of wood glue on this. Ooh, I've marked a line around here where it's got to go, and I've got to try and do it without getting wood glue everywhere. Okay, so this should be fairly simple if I can pick up my glue. So the next bit I want to do is, obviously I've got the engraving on here, but I do want to colour this in black. So all of this engraving I want coloured in black, and also on the back where I've done this little coded message. But if I start painting this, the chances are the paint is going to bleed into the remainder of the wood. So what I want to do is I want to put a barrier on this, then paint, and then sand it back. Now what I'm going to use for the barrier is some of this, which is just normal shellac, and I'm just going to give this a coat on both sides, then leave it over tonight to dry properly, and then I can start my painting. So let's just put a little bit of this on. And then we'll leave it overnight. Right, so this has been drying overnight. It's got a coat of shellac on it. What I'm going to do now is literally paint in all the recesses where it's been carved with this acrylic paint pen. Yeah, so I'm just going to sit here and basically fill in all the engraving. Not much to watch, but it's got to be done. Right, so that's the front and the inside now done. What I'll do is I'll wait until this dries and then give it a good old sanding. If you're using one of these pens, just a couple of tips. If you was doing this, for example, always start from the furthest away point, because if you start down here, you'll end up getting it on your hands like I did, and then you end up transferring it onto the wood. So start furthest away and work towards yourself. And also bear in mind the grain of the wood, because the felt tip on the end of here can catch on the grain and it can flick the paint everywhere. So just a couple of tips on colouring in. Right, let's get on to the next bit. Right, it's now the next weekend. This has been drying all week, so I think that should be dry now, so I can sand that down. Just thought I'd give it a quick try in the box, and whoops. Now what's happened is obviously the lid has got this on it, this rebate here, but it hits on the inside lip here. So what I've got to do, I can't take any off of the lid because of the engraving, so I've got to take a little bit off of here and here. Let's find a way to do that tidy. So this is all sanded down now. Before I put any wax on it, I'm going to line the back and this collar here with some foam. Now the idea is obviously to protect the bottle a little bit, and the choices I've got are these foams. Now I've got red, bright blue, black and a bit of navy blue. I've just consulted Mrs. Little Workshop and she recommends this one. So what I should do is I'll cut this. This is only about 3mm thick, 2mm thick, 3mm thick. I shall cut this and put it in a box, see what it looks like. Yes, I think that was a good colour choice. This is all roughly cut to size now. What I've got to do is stick these on, stick the backs in, and then get the whole thing on wax. Yeah, nice colour. Right, well that's about it. If you've made it to the end of the video, well done. It's a bit of an epic journey, but this is it. It's all done now. This is for, it's actually for my brother for his 60th birthday. Hopefully he'll like it. It's all a very nice thing. The blue I think works really well. It's got a nice bottle of Bollinger in there. So the engraving on the front turned out well, and also the secret Morse code message inside. So hopefully he's going to like this. I shall be delivering it to him next weekend, and I think that's about it. So as I say, thank you very much for making it to the end of the video, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. Oh.